This podcast is brought to you by our incredibly awesome Anime Addicts community. If you want to join the community, help out the show, you can do it at AAAPodcast.com/join or Patreon.com. And hey, if you want to join our Discord, you can head over to AAADiscord.com, jump in there, make some friends, talk anime, maybe even talk to the host as well. And now, let's start the podcast.
Get ready! You're about to listen to the Anime Addicts Anonymous Podcast. Make your anime addiction worse at AAAPodcast.com. And now, here are your anime addicts.
Welcome to the 749th episode of the Anime Addicts Anonymous Podcast. The sole mission, to make your anime addiction worse. I am your host, Mitsugi, as always, and I am joined by two fantastic gentlemen. Welcoming back to the show again, it's Kazuo.
Oh, hey, what's up, everybody? It's good to be back. I missed you all.
We also have the very beautiful Mason.
Oh, nice. You said two fantastic gentlemen. I wasn't sure if I was going to make the cut. Glad that's all taken care of.
I will say that both Mason and Kazuo have great hair, and I have none. So,
I'm sorry. You can borrow mine if you want.
I don't know how that's going to work. But hey, if you guys want to watch us, you can do it live on twitch.tv and also YouTube Sundays at 5 p.m. Eastern. So head over there, check out the show. And you can also follow us on all the social medias. We are on just about everywhere you can go. We're on X, we're on TikTok, Facebook, etc., etc. And of course, again, the Discord, AAADiscord.com. That is where we want you to go. Would either of you like to promote anything before we keep rolling through the show here?
I want to give a shout out on November 10th. If you want us to live rank and crush your hopes and dreams by taking your precious My Anime list or Annie list or whatever you use to track and score anime and submit it for judgment to us, we will be doing a live roast session and maybe complimentary accolades to folks. So if you want to join, go to the Discord. We got all the info there. Nice little form. You can be on the podcast for eternal glory or shame. So check it out.
I can't wait to see that. And for me, I have recently been pushing my tech YouTube channel where I post a bunch of like tech reviews and recommendations and tips and tricks. I actually recently started doing a short pretty much every day. So if you want to keep up to speed on all the new tech stuff that's going on, check out the Spare Tech Room on YouTube and now on TikTok.
Oh my goodness. Is that spelled exactly how I would think?
The Spare Tech Room, spelled exactly as you would think.
So there's no excuse for me not to subscribe.
That's right.
Sounds good.
Join me now.
All right. Well, today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about the rise and fall of anime genres. This was inspired by a mailbag that we got some time ago. And then I started answering the mailbag, and then I realized that I had more to say than I thought. And so we're just going to talk about it as a topic today. And also, we are going to be starting the impressions, so
today, we're going to be doing impressions.
Impression time! Believe it!
there you go.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Fall Impressions 2024. Yeah. MF Ghost Season 2. Lots of Season 2s here. Blue Lock Season 2. Shangri-La Frontier Season 2. The instant classic, If My Wife Became an Elementary School Student.
Oh, God.
Is it as problematic as it sounds? Stay tuned.
And, of course, the equally classic Yakuza Fiance, because, I don't know, just exudes pedigree, honestly. That's what I get from that. All right, let's get it started.
大ニュースです。It's time for big news of the week.
All right, well, Crunchyroll put out some very alarming information this week that I think is kind of topical to our show today, because it is, we're gonna be talking about the comings and goings of anime and the themes and genres that come and go, and trends and whatnot. Crunchyroll explores shorter anime for shrinking attention spans in TikTok generation. I knew this was coming.
Okay. I mean, we've seen shorter like anime before, right? Like they've done these kinds of shows, not necessarily Crunchyroll specifically, but like there are anime that have come out before that have shorter episodes in general.
They
Yeah,
exist.
this is nothing new,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Keep on going through the the news.
So they are exploring the idea of shorter anime projects to suit the preference of younger generations for short-form content, such as that seen on TikTok. COO Gita Reba Pragada and President Rahul Purini talked about the latest trends in the anime industry. Purini replied, "Most anime are between 21 and 24 minutes long." Correct. Meanwhile, younger generations are used to watching short 2 to 4 minute videos one after another. We need to think about how to tell anime stories differently than we traditionally have done. The anime ecosystem itself needs to continue to evolve. How does it make you feel?
I mean, I'm not against the idea of trying to tell stories in different lengths or formats or mediums, as long as it doesn't hinder what already exists, right? Like if you want to expand and tell these like truncated stories, that's totally cool. And if you can find interesting and unique ways to do that, I'm all for it. But I definitely don't want to lose, what we have already. Like I don't want them to divert their attention and their strength from that into something like this. That's just my personal opinion.
I know that we said that this already exists in anime, but it's not prevalent. I mean, we don't have it. This is maybe 2 a season.
Yeah.
So in August, continuing on with the article, Reba Pragada said the platform was exploring short-form content like anime music videos as well as promotional content throughout platforms like TikTok. There's a lot of additional notes about different people that have been exploring this in the past and in the current present. Masayuki Ozaki, president of Bandai Namco Pictures, who's worked on a bunch of stuff, has left his company this month to establish a new anime studio called Creedom 8, specializing in shorter anime projects. Also, Japan-based animation studio Tokyo Epic will set up an anime distribution platform and a new dedicated studio specifically for short-form content. Numerous NFT-based companies such as Azuki use short-form content to reach people. Branded content creators like Intertrend have also seen success with anime shorts for Toyota and other companies. And last year, Magica, the parent company of the Pokemon Studio OLM, reached a deal to produce, quote, light anime to bring down production costs. It's got me feeling not too good. I mean...
Yeah. So my whole thing is I always want shows to be as long as they need to be and should be. I think if they came out and said, oh, we're looking to produce anime in the 22 to 30 minute time frame because that's what TV does. Like that would also make me feel bad because we can already see that when shows are put in the box of, okay, it's got to be 22 minutes long, and it's got to be 12 to 13 episodes. Like anime suffers when it can't be fluid and be as long as they want. And you can say, look at Pui Pui Molkar, unironically one of my favorite shows. Like that was 3 minutes an episode, and it was because it excelled best in 3 minutes long. Secco Boys, that really dumb sketch show about like the idol group of statues. Like that was 8 minutes an episode, and that worked because that's as long as it needed to be. I think when you get into, okay, we need to have a show that's 3 minutes, what fits in that box, like that's inherently, like I feel like you're already undercutting any creativity by forcing it into it. And I get it. Creativity needs to be limited in some forms, but just to be like, oh, we want to have short stuff only feels not great. But at the same time, shorts are really booming these days. I mean, why do you think, Tony, you just started taking your stuff and making a short version? Because that's digestible and it draws people. On this very YouTube channel for our podcast, we take our big, long 2-hour juggernaut and we sometimes cut it into bite-sized chunks because that's more easy to consume. Like, it is what is fresh and trendy. Mm-hmm. I just wish they were saying, we're making stuff that can be shorter and that's stuff that has to be shorter. But it's how the production works, and I guess I can't fault them for it beyond that.
Yeah, and I can see, whether it's, you'll be watching an anime and they'll have like the very beginning of the anime, like a 1.5 minute recap of the last episode, like making shorts in that, or even sometimes post credits, they'll have these little fun, side stories that they'll tell with the characters, like, and those are obviously much shorter as well. So I can see that there is room for short form content and, maybe little side stories or recaps or things like that. But yeah, you definitely don't want them to do that at the cost of telling a good story, because that's the most important thing, regardless of the length of the content, whether it's a 22-minute episode or an hour-and-a-half movie or a 60-second short. As long as you're able to tell a compelling and cohesive story in whatever time that's allotted to you, that's all that really matters.
I just saw the movie Idiocracy for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys have seen that.
It's so good. It's so good.
But
It's one of those movies that I've been meaning to see it forever, and I've just never gotten around to it. I'm gonna put that.
People always say like, "Oh, it's so predictive of today."
Kazo, this movie, it's got what plants want.
So, Kazo, you haven't seen it, but Mason's seen it.
I know a lot about it because just
so it's endlessly quotable.
Yeah.
People would tell
I've never
me
actually seen it myself.
They would say, "Oh my God, this movie is so predictive of things that happened, today in our world and all this," and and we watched it, and I don't really agree. I don't think there's that much, not quite as much as people say, and that predicted things that would happen. But in that movie, there's definitely a loss of like intelligence and attention span for people, and I just don't want to. I don't want the world to become a place where we slowly move into where everything is in a format that only requires you to have a 2-minute attention span. Like we didn't used to have the short videos. Then TikTok came out, right? Then Instagram did it. Then YouTube did it. Now everybody's doing it, and now they're saying, "Oh, well, now we're going to make anime shorter because it's easier for the TikTok generation," which is literally quoted in this article. And if you want to make some short anime, that's fine. Like they do it now, but I don't want anime to become mostly that just because people can't sit for 20 minutes. And I don't want people to make shorter anime just to make them cheaper. I could definitely see a world where they're like, "Oh, well, this anime just made the same amount of money as Demon Slayer, but it only had 3-minute episodes." And then it's just like a company is trying to make more profit by making the product shittier, but still hitting a home run with it. Like, I don't want them to make anime 2 minutes long just because they don't want to fork out the money or because they don't think people can sit for more than 2 minutes. Like that, to me, that sounds like shit. So
yeah, it's like what Tony said. If all anime veers towards this trend, it's not a great sign. And just imagine, Mitz, now instead of 60 shows coming out per season, all of them get half as long. You get 120 shows per season. Double the money opportunity. That's capitalism, baby. We stay winning.
You'd have to have... Go ahead.
I do wonder, and this is like putting on my positive spin hat for
here
this.
It comes.
Is what if in doing this, it opens up opportunities for more creators to, that the studios don't have to invest in full-length shows or what have you, and they can and because of that they can have more creators get involved in shorter form content. So kind of like it just creates more opportunity for different stories to be told, and then from those, because here's the thing is that when you're invested in a show, you want as much of that as you can possibly get.
Yes,
like if you're watching a show and you love the characters and you love the world, you want there to be 1 million episodes. Like you just want to be. Yeah, like One Piece or Naruto or any of these shows that have been running forever and ever because people love them. You want as much as you can get from that content. So if with pursuing these like shorts, if they can get more creators to tell more unique and interesting stories, and then from there, the ones that kind of the cream that rises to the top, they can kind of take that and run with it in longer form content.
A perfect example of that is and I know Mitz would hate it, but the Encouragement of Climb series, where the group of Moe girls hikes up mountains. Like season 1 of that was 4-minute long episodes, and people loved it that it came out with 14-minute long episodes. And by the final season, it's full length 24-minute.
It's 4 hours an episode.
8 hours. The whole thing is just them hiking up and then hiking back down, baby.
It's literally
so
real
immersive.
time. Yeah,
real time.
There's absolutely the case for short form content of being an easier barrier of entry, not just for the viewers, but just the creators. And Puri Puri Molkar, 3-minute long episodes. They're coming out with a movie now, like a full length thing. So there's definitely a positive from the creativity side to getting it. But like we said, when it becomes a shortcut of, oh, we can make anime cheaper now. We can make it for less. We can make it to fit a consumerist slot instead of a compelling creative procedure. That's where you feel like, you can see the mechanisms of the machine working behind it too much. And you're like, this doesn't make me feel good. It doesn't make me feel like I'm going to get a good product out of it. And I'm sure it'll be fine content at times, but if you don't have a Subway Surfer like side cam for me to watch during my show when there's a long dialogue scene, I'm not interested.
Jesus.
Or
like somebody in the bottom corner just pointing up and nodding at
Yeah,
it.
I need a reaction image with everything to let me know how to feel because I wasn't paying attention. What were you talking about again?
I don't know. The chat has got some funny comments. Hot green bean, which is a funny name, but like I don't, just to say, I don't ever want to eat green beans hot. First of all, green beans are like D tier vegetable anyway. But if I'm gonna eat a green bean, it's gonna be like sliced and dipped in ranch, and like in like a veggie tray. Okay.
Fried green beans are pretty good, and I mean we're like a month away from Thanksgiving, and I bet you there's gonna be some in your casserole. So
Definitely.
Oh man, green beans are just.
Oh yeah, I make a killer green bean casserole with some like Gruyere cheese, like, oof, delicious.
Well, yeah, you put Gruyere on anything. Anyway, what did the beans say?
They said the anime market is becoming saturated. It will become the definition of saturated. My hot little green bean friend, it's already saturated. You're getting 55 full length anime a season. There's more animated than you can humanly watch, really. Anyway, so why don't we move on? That was a good article. That could have been a whole topic, honestly, but we don't often
it's
get
too soon. We'll see how it comes to be. In like
maybe we'll do just
a
30-second long podcast about it.
Yeah,
also,
really.
Yeah, maybe we will. Yeah, exactly.
Just take this clip of us talking for way too long, 10 minutes. Just fast forward it like 17 times.
There you go.
30 seconds.
All right, what do we got next?
Next, actual good news. It's finally coming back. Dorohedoro confirmed to have an anime sequel, folks. It's been years in the making. 4, I believe, if my math is correct. Don't fact check me on that, but that's what my heart tells me. Yeah, great show. One of my favorites. Great for the spooky Halloween time. It's not really scary, but it makes you feel some sort of way. There's a naked skeleton lady. If that's not enough to make you want to watch it, I don't know what is. No release date, no studio, no staff, literally nothing of value in this news thing except to confirm that it's coming. So fans of the manga, fans of the anime, here, we're back in it. I have it behind me. It's so beautiful. I love it. Please check it out. Ignore the CG. It's still good. I promise you'll love it.
Lizard man face.
Yeah, I think it won like a bunch of awards at our exquisitely rated AAA, anime of the year of stuff. So if you don't trust me, at least trust our listeners because they have good taste occasionally.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
You said there is a skeleton woman. Now, how do you know she's a woman if she's a skeleton? Is it like
it's true.
Her pelvis bone is not as dense as a male skeleton, or like what's
no,
the deal?
You know, my guy. I need not.
Please tell me it's a skeleton with boobs.
There's a lot of cleavage. It's not all skeleton.
God.
Cleavage, Mason. Yeah.
There's a shark girl. You gotta love shark girls.
They're gonna
for baseball teams.
They're gonna take a chip of they're gonna take a little piece of bone and run it through a machine, and it's gonna say female, because that's what happens.
100% skeleton. And you're like, okay.
We're gonna talk about this, but I'm just gonna throw it out there in advance. Dorohedoro, not a horror anime, so I don't know why the people think it is, but it's not. So we can argue about it.
Spooky aesthetics, but when you have that much gyoza in the show, it can't be scary.
Oh, I love gyoza. It's so delicious. Actually, another side note, because this is what you do on podcasts, so fuck it.
Yeah.
I can't eat gyoza at restaurants anymore because if you go to the grocery store and buy a bag of them for like $6, you get like 30 or 40 of them. You throw them in the air fryer, they come out exactly the same as at a restaurant. And when I go to a restaurant now and you get gyoza and it's like $8, I'm like, am I stupid? Like I could just bring some of these in my pocket in a plastic bag and just dump them on my tray. That's like the guy who brings the flask to the bar because like the one drink is too expensive and he wants more alcohol.
my
so
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't have an air fryer, the secret to gyoza, you put it on your pan on hot, wait till that side crisp up, turn it once, turn the heat off, put the lid on, steam it, and then don't flip the third side. Just fry one side, steam the second side, third side you leave as is. That's how you get good gyoza. Pro strats. Anyway, final piece of news. What do we got, Tony?
Amazing. Well, my piece of news is just real simple. I just wanted to go over some of the TV rankings, the Japanese animation TV rankings. October 7th to the 13th, we just got this information, it looks like today. And in Japan, this is always interesting to me when I see their TV rankings because there are some shows on here that have been running for 1 billion years, you know, like Sazae-san and Detective Conan and Doraemon. And I'm like, who is watching these? Like, it must just be all these
cultural
like, old people
masses.
or little kids. Yeah, that are just at home all day. It's like The Price is Right. It's like somebody's watching it. But the reason why this week's rankings are interesting is because we have the final episode of season 7 of My Hero Academia that placed on here. It looks like the way that they do their rankings is based on a percentage of households that is watching it. So with My Hero Academia, the finale, we had 3.2% of Japanese households watching that. And we had the first episode of Dragon Ball Daima.
Fuck yeah,
which,
baby.
Yes, is also coming in with 3.2% of the Japanese viewers watching that first episode. So pretty awesome to see that it's doing well right off the bat. Now, full disclosure, I have not yet watched the first episode of Dragon Ball Daima. I've actually been going through a full Dragon Ball Z rewatch just all day
shit.
as I work, just having it on. And it is amazing. It totally lives up. But I think Mitz, I think you've watched the first episode of Daima, and Mason, I don't know if you have or
I've
not.
seen
but
it, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, what are your guys' thoughts so far on this?
Better than Super.
It's
Yeah.
so it takes place before Super, which is going to piss off some people. But Dragon Ball Super, you know, as big of a Dragon Ball fan as I am, it's kind of trash, honestly. I mean, I watched it. It just kind of throw everything at the wall. And so there's some things that work, some things don't, but it's way better to start it at the end of Dragon Ball Z and kind of just go back and do something fun with it. So, I mean, I thought first of all, the animation and the way it looks is much better. It's a huge improvement over Super. It's not even close. I'm not going to say it's like amazingly animated, but it's pretty damn good for Dragon Ball. And it's just going to be fun watching them all be little kids. And it's fun. And they're like, well, what do we do with the kids that are already kids? He's like, oh, make them babies. So like Trunks is going to be a baby again. Goten and Goten, who no one likes anyway, is going to be a baby again.
Well, it was weird because they're like this dark demon. Well, we'll talk about it another day, but like it's this dark demon realm, and they're like, how old do we make the kids? And they're like, elementary school, implying that this dark demon realm has the same like school system as like Japan, like that they know what like that age group would imply. I don't know. I just think this chart is very interesting because we see essentially Dragon Ball return, probably one of the biggest shonen IPs ever. My Hero Academia closing off a season that seems to be a massive return to form, some of the best the series has ever been, and it's still not even sniffing the nether regions of like a Detective Conan or Sazae-san, because it's just like as big as we think the biggest anime is over here in the West, like it's still not
even close.
Cultural tent poles of, you know, the stuff at the very top, like Doraemon or whatever. And that's just like, what's popular does not always equate across the globe, but it's still super interesting.
And you know what's funny is that everybody sleeps on Chibi Maruko-chan, but like people don't realize that the stuff we're watching on the podcast ain't shit compared to most of the stuff on this list. I mean, this is really the cultural dominant anime. I mean, Chibi Maruko-chan, half the people listening don't even know what the fuck that is, and it's the second highest watched show pretty much every week. It has almost 1,000 episodes. It's been running for like 30 years. I mean, it's a fucking beast. And then Sazae-san, I mean, it's like it makes One Piece look short. I mean, Sazae-san has 3,937 episodes.
Jesus.
I mean,
it's just been running forever.
Yeah, it's been running since 1969. It's like one of the oldest shows on Earth. It might be the oldest show on Earth still running concurrently.
Yeah,
So,
there's another
it's
show
crazy.
there's another show on the ranking that had its debut, which I haven't seen anything about this show yet, but it's Magical Girls Inc. I think is the name of it, or Maggie Lumiere.
It's on here.
Magical Girls Inc. Okay, yeah. So that also made the ranking, with 2.7% of households
Interesting.
watching that debut.
That just
So
started.
something to look out for.
Yeah, I don't even think we're covering this in our impressions. So
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's a whiff on our part, but don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, just interesting to see how everything's stacking up early with this new season. Some stuff to look out for. Dragon Ball Daima hopefully does well. You know, I am always interested to see with Dragon Ball. You know, the original. I feel like the animation was pretty remarkable, and it almost feels like it's gotten worse. Even though you can imagine that the budget must be so much higher than any of the original series would have had. But I guess it's just more about pumping out this content and not taking time with it to make it as
Yeah.
visually appealing as
His
possible.
hair is blue now. What more do you want? Jeez.
No. We erased all of that. The pink hair Goku, blue, silver, none of that. And none of it exists anymore. It's now Dragon Ball Daima. We're back to what actually counts: being cool and not having 14 more hair colors. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I will say two things. One, you already mentioned it. This Maggie Lumiere. It's really the only show in here that doesn't belong. Like, what is it? Where the fuck did it come from? Everything else
Yeah.
in here you expect to see, but this one thing is way out of left field. I'm wondering if our listeners will pick it for listener choice or if it's just a Japan thing. So we'll have to see. The other thing is that I don't know if you still play video games, Kazuo, very much, but the Dragon Ball Kakarot game perfectly retells the entirety of Dragon Ball Z from end to end.
Nice.
So I just played through that game, and I mean, it's like watching the anime in detail, in like probably over the course of 30 hours, so that they don't leave pretty much anything out. So
Nice.
in a way, I kind of just did Dragon Ball again too. So, all right.
Awesome.
Well,
What
let's
about Dragon Ball Sparkling Zero? What about that?
That's a fighting game.
Oh,
I'm
it
just
doesn't
not.
count. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely counts. Oh, don't give me your shit, Mason. You don't play fighting games.
No, I don't.
Exactly. So no, I mean Dragon Ball, like Budokai, I think Kaiichi 3 or whatever, is like one of the biggest fighting games of all time. People were pretty. Sparking Zero, I heard it sold 3 million copies in one day. It's a hit
Wow.
already. It's already a hit.
Jeez.
So that number may or may not be fully accurate, but I heard a YouTuber talking about how big it was, and it's apparently doing really well. So chat says it's good shit. So yeah, I'm just bad at fighting games, and then like little kids curse at me and laugh because they beat my ass because I'm not any good. All right, so
Yeah,
the
I'm
main
not good at
topic for
either.
today, that was a good, thanks guys for the news. We have a news area on the Discord, and I would appreciate it if you would put things in there for the podcast, because sometimes you guys put really good stuff in there, and it does save us some effort. We have a mailbag that was submitted from Brandon. This is the main topic, rise and fall of anime genres. The mailbag wrote, "Hey addicts, I found myself in a very let down by Zom 100 series because we haven't had a serious zombie apocalypse show since High School of the Dead," and I fully agree with you. My question to you is, what genres of anime do you feel have largely been abandoned that deserve proper revival to help break up the constant tsunami of generic isekai sludge that comes out every season? So he really only wanted to talk about the stuff that had been killed off that we'd like to see again, but I thought it would make sense to throw in some like stuff that's actually like on the come, as they say. So one of you threw throwback remakes on here, so I just added a couple. So
Yeah. So what seems to be, and we're kind of getting away from what the question was in the mailbag, but the genres that are on the uptick, things that are coming back in spades or in vogue, and the biggest one that comes to my mind right now, especially in 2024, is the throwback remake. I mean, from Urusei Yatsura, Ranma 1/2, Rurouni Kenshin, Bastard, Fruits Basket, Rosa Versailles, Dororo, Legend of Galactic Heroes, Osumatsu, Spice and Wolf, Bartender. Like, all these classic shows are getting a new coat of paint, a new fresh like remake going on. I mean, Bleach is coming back, and it's a continuation. Dragon Ball's back. Trigun just got a new version. Dragon Quest just got a new version. One Piece isn't even done yet. It's getting a new version. Magic Knight Ray.
What?
Like all old shows are like getting retooled because everyone's like, oh, all the old fogies that used to like this stuff are still the people who are spending money on this stuff. Let's get it out to people. These stories won once. Let's roll the dice with them again. And I am not really a huge fan of them, but at the same time, I feel like they're not taking bandwidth away from other shows. So why not let people see Ranma 1/2 with a new art style that will actually be watchable for the modern aesthetics?
I'm just gonna say that new Ranma 1/2 anime is fucking good. I mean, it is just a joy.
I
it is
disagree, but that's just, we'll talk about it later.
It is a pleasure for me to. Oh, I just love it.
I mean, the idea of like remaking these older animes is, I mean, it's a great idea because you for multiple reasons. One, because a lot of these anime are legendary and are anime that people have heard of but maybe haven't seen themselves, and so this is a fantastic introduction to people that just haven't had a chance to watch a lot of these shows, and maybe haven't been inclined to watch them because there are a lot of them as old as they are, and so people generally just want to watch new stuff. So it's great to introduce people that didn't get a chance to watch these back in the day. Also, you have people that grew up with a lot of these anime and now are adults and are heavily nostalgic for these properties. And so giving them the opportunity to revisit these, and also to, just from a business perspective, you have this audience that were children at the times that a lot of these shows came out. Now they're adults with disposable income, so they can, financially support these properties that they loved as a kid. So honestly, I know a lot of people hate remakes because they feel like they lessen what came before them. I'm of the belief that remakes have no real impact on the original property, and it's pretty much all upside. Like the worst that can happen with a remake is that it's not as good as the original, and then you just ignore it.
Yeah.
But the best that can happen with a remake is that it introduces an entirely new audience and resparks the love of something that may have died off a bit.
So I agree. I agree and I disagree. But it is funny. People only bitch and moan about remakes when they're bad remakes. Yeah. Like, for example, Resident Evil 4, the remake of that, incredible. It could be better than the original one. But then you get like, I'm trying to think of an example of a game that people were pissed off about. Like maybe some of the Tomb Raider games. I'm not really sure. But like people will bitch and moan about that when it's not good. And I just say, well, like just go play the original if you're mad about it. Or people get mad about various things in the Final Fantasy VII game. Like they change some storylines and they change outfits and people get pissed. But it's like, to me, I get angry more. Well, I don't really get angry about it because who gives a fuck. But like honestly, for me, it's more like I'd rather they just spend their money and their effort on something new than have to do a remake. And to me, it signals laziness. Like people, like these companies, they're all out trying to make money. In reality, like whatever people think, you're wrong. Companies just want to make money. That's all they want to do. That's why they exist. And they're basically saying, we think we can take this older thing and make a new one for half the price, and you'll buy it because you want to have an up-res of Shadow of the Colossus for the 9th time. But it's like, that's really just a cheap and easy way to try to grab some cash. I'd rather have them like sit down, come up with something creative, and make something new that's amazing. Like that, what was it, like that the Monkey King anime that came out, the Rise of whatever. People like that, right? And it sold a ton of copies. Or like Elden Ring, that was a new one. Instead of just remaking, I mean, I don't feel like the remake of Demon Souls nearly had the acclaim that Elden Ring had. I don't know. I just feel like anime is doing the same thing. I'm okay with it. Some of these are really good. I really enjoyed Bastard. I enjoyed the anime is fun as fuck. It's so cute. But I would rather them try to like do. But anime just seems to be struggling with creativity so much. I mean, that was kind of the crux of the topic with the constant tsunami of generic isekai sludge. I mean, yeah, it's maybe they just can't. Maybe they just don't have the creativity to like reach out and do that anymore. I'm not really sure.
But then again, you're gonna pass Ranma 1/2 minutes. You're gonna pass Spicy Wolf, even if it is just like the same thing you already saw.
Well, I mean, yeah, because like this is like anime from a time when people actually thought about something and had a cool idea. And these anime are still incredible ideas. They just look old. And now you're bringing them up like Ram the 1/2. It might have looked like shit before. Like I don't know. I didn't really watch the original, but This new one, it has this beautiful watercolor palette. The characters look like fucking Inuyasha characters because it's Rumiko Takahashi. And it has like a very cute idea. And these other anime, they can't compete. Rum the One Half was already a hit for a reason. You're bringing it to, it's like bringing Michael Jordan out of retirement to play. I mean, it's like, he might be old, but in a world where he didn't age, he would just stomp the hell out of most of the NBA. So, you know what I mean? That's not gonna have. I don't know. What do you guys thought? Do you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate the idea of remakes because I don't have to watch them because I don't need to watch them. But I get they're a way to get it back in the eyes of the populace, and so I bet a ton of people were like, "Oh, Ranma 1/2, I've heard of it," but they never really get around to it until it's the new hotness. It's talked about. It's on their streaming services. On this, so it's in vogue. I'm not complaining. I'm just going to complain later. The other genre I had for kind of on the uptick is one that I absolutely thought was going to be one of the falling ones, which is josei anime, which is obviously there's shonen, which is for young boys, shoujo, which is for young girls, and then there's josei, which is for like adult teenage girls or women. And we don't get very many of these shows, so I was going to be like, oh, we only get like 3 or 4 of them a year. It's falling off hard. Josei is a dying genre, but when you really look it up, Josei pretty much used to have no anime coming out. There's all this manga, all this really good manga, and like 80s, 90s, nothing. Maybe one show every couple years. Now we're getting at least a couple Josei shows a year, and I'm hoping, I'm once again stealing Tony's optimistic hat, putting on my head and saying, I hope this is the beginning of josei being more recognized. And yes, some of them are just running into the villainous route again and again. But I think once we get over that hump and people are like, oh, dang, josei shows are good for a plethora of people, not just older women. Sign me up. Like if I see a josei show, I'm immediately marking that as planning to watch because I think we'll get something better. So here's hoping that 5 years from now, josei is much more active and being a major player in the upcoming slate of anime shows. So wishful thinking, but those are my two that I wanted to bring up. What'd you guys have?
I am not a fan of the villainous anime, by the way. I mean, I think I'm done.
We're seeing it done to death, just like the isekai.
But unlike some of the isekais, I've yet to see a good villainous show. They just don't seem to be good. Like I don't know, they're just not good. And this new one's terrible. It's really bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
do think. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I like the fact that they're going. I just wanted to make one more comment about the remakes. I like the fact that these remakes are happening in some respect because these people will not go back and watch older anime, and I truly believe anime was better like a couple decades ago. I think it was more original. You have more hits, in my opinion, but people won't go back and watch it, and some of the stuff's not easy to find. So, that's my take. I like that people are getting exposed to stuff like Ramna. They'll watch it now because it looks new and it's on Crunchyroll, but can you even watch the original anywhere? I'm not really sure, but I know it'll look really dated. Go ahead, Cosmo.
Yeah. Oh no, I was gonna say regarding the josei, the growth of that. I mean, I was trying to find the numbers really quick on the side here, but I couldn't find exact numbers. But certainly the female audience of anime has grown over the years. So I think that is something that will probably continue to grow, much like with video games. Video games way back in the day were a largely male medium, and now we see that the numbers are, almost 50-50 with male and female, players of video games. And I think that anime will probably have a similar trend, as the years go on, and so as that audience grows, I can certainly see that genre of anime growing as well.
Here's the hoping. We'll see.
And
any
for
other genres, that we think are going on the up and up, or is it all downhill?
I mean, I feel like the genres that are continuing to grow are genres that we're kind of getting sick of, which is, every season I feel like we have several new shonens that are telling kind of the same stories that we've seen a million times, or isekais that, look, and many of them are good. Like, I've enjoyed some very recent isekais, some of which we'll be talking about today on the podcast. But
vending machine isekais, vending machine shows, booming. We went from 0 for thousands of years, and now we're up to 1.
Fuck.
That's exponential growth.
I mean, yeah. or like sports anime. Those have continued to grow, which that's one where it's like,
Have
how
they?
many
Talk
more?
about that. We'll
Have
talk
they?
about that.
Yeah, like how many more ways can we tell this same story? But it's those are certainly genres that are seeing, I feel like, a lot of growth in the recent years.
All right, well, we'll talk about sports. We're going to get there. The first obvious one is horror. And I'd like to say that I think the horror genre, this is for the ones that are on the decline, I think the horror genre always sucked. I don't think it was ever good. I think it's the thinnest genre that's out there. And people will or won't disagree, but I'd also argue that the Japanese horror kind of sucks in real life. I used to have
Interesting.
I used to have Screambox, which is a $2 a month service that only carries horror movies. And let's be honest, everybody got Screambox so they could watch Terrifier 2, and then as soon as they saw it, they unsubscribed. But because I'm a huge horror fan, and I wanted to be able to watch more horror shows. Well, it turns out that Screambox is mostly like what are they called? D-list movies, or even worse, right? And Screambox
like
had
DVD type stuff.
just really low budget, like just terrible fucking movies. Screambox had a whole section just for Japan, and I would look up the most famous Japanese horror movies, and I'd see which ones were on Screambox, and so I'd watch them. The Ring and all that, the basic ones, and they're just terrible. It's some of the most low budget junk you've ever seen. I mean, and that isn't to say that horror movies can't be good if they're out of a low budget. Terrifier 1 they made for $35,000. That was a hit. Paranormal Activity made like $200 million or something ridiculous, and it only cost them $15,000 to make that movie. It just seems to me that Japanese horror in general is a big fail. So you guys may or may not agree, but I think that's part of it.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest horror fan personally, but I do, think that, I mean, I know people that are big horror fans, and there is an ardent love of Japanese horror. Like that is a genre of horror that is, as far as from what I've seen, pretty beloved, and maybe has fallen off in recent years, but certainly there are some staples. Movies that have come out of Japan that have been remade for American Western audiences that are absolutely legendary.
There are a few, but if you go on like Netflix, and I don't want to belabor this too much because it would just go long, but if you go on Netflix or something and you start watching the horror movies that are coming out now, a lot of them are foreign. A lot of the really savage, like fucked up movies are foreign, right? And and I'll tell you right now, none of them are Japanese. They're Indonesian, they're Korean, they're French, they're Norwegian, right? But there are no Japanese ones, or they're Chinese. There were some really good Chinese ones that came out recently, but and I think that horror is more of a theme in anime instead of the actual focus. I think Mason, and we talked about that earlier with Dorohedoro, and that's
it's an aesthetic. They put on the horror hat and have spooky elements, but it's not really frightening. And I feel like part of me thinks that's in fact of your brain knows, and it's harder to trick because there's more of a gap between seeing, live action horror and believing that could happen to me, and seeing our cartoon killer clown and being like, yeah, it's a killer clown, but it's also a cartoon. And you can find gore in anime with shows like Shigeru. You can find suspense with masterpieces like Perfect Blue, like Orb, an anime from this season, has scenes of like people ripping off fingernails, and you feel uneasy. Hibine Renmei has like the wing scene like popping out of the girl's back, and you feel upset by it, but it's not really
makes me hungry.
Horrifying. Yeah, I was like, oh, I could go for some Buffalo Wild Wings. No, but like it doesn't make you horrified and keep you up in the same way. Not saying that people aren't terrified of it, but it's just not on the same level that a live action thing can produce. And anime is never really excelled, so I don't feel like it's failing at horror, because I can't be like, oh, back in the 80s Japanese horror anime were phenomenal. It's like it's always been weird and dark, but it's never been a genre that the anime has excelled at, unfortunately.
All right, so I'm going to prove my point here with this. So, and my point is that, again, that the anime, that the Japanese horror genre is bad. So the last 5 years, I wrote down, I already went on my anime list. I looked up all the horror shows the last 5 years, and I marked down the ones that had good reviews or had a lot of people that watched them. We'll start with Uzumaki. Uzumaki already has shitty reviews on my anime list. It's a 6.6.
And it's getting worse.
I was told that like the first episode looks good and then it looks like ass after that. Like it's just not gonna. Like,
next week on the AAA podcast, we're talking about all of Uzumaki. So if you want to watch it and join in on the fun, we're talking about it next week. So anyway, yes, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, and there's a few others here that I'm going to mention. The next one on the list is Zom 100, and the person that submitted the topic already noted that was a letdown. Zom 100 is not horror. It is comedy, clearly. It's clearly comedy. If you think it isn't, you're wrong. It just is. Have you seen Zom 100, Cosmo?
I have not, no.
All right, it's basically just a silly show where people run around and like they're running from zombies, but it's not really horror.
The zombies are literally just representing, oh, life sucks sometimes, so make the most of it, have a positive attitude, get the most out of life. It's more of an uplifting message than a, oh God, we're gonna die type of zombie invasion.
Gotcha. Any relation to Mob Psycho 100? No.
Unfortunately.
There are a few that are good, like that I would note here. This one, Dark Gathering, we never watched it, but it has a fair amount of people who did watch it. It has almost an 8, so so I'll give you that.
It was all right, but it wasn't horrifying.
Here's the Zom 100. Half the planet watched this, but it's not horror. Okay, let's not kid ourselves. This Meiruko-chan, a lot of people watched it. Mediocre review. I'm just gonna go out on a limb, and I haven't seen this, but I'm just gonna say that this isn't horror either. I watched the trailers yesterday, and not a single element of horror exists anywhere in the trailers. And then at the end of it, it describes itself as a comedy at the end of the trailer. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say this is not a comedy. This is not horror either. It's probably a comedy with schoolgirls, and then there's like a spooky ghost, and it's not really horror. Then there's this other show, Tenku Shinpan, which I don't know shit about, but it has a bad review. But I would also say it doesn't seem like very much horror from what I saw. And then the last one is Dorohei Doro, and this is not horror either. So I mean, I'm borderline ready to say that the only good horror show that's come out in the last 5 years is Dark Gathering. If you guys can think of another one, I'll hear it, but yeah, I have no evidence as to the contrary.
I mean, are you arguing for horror as a aesthetic or horror as a actual genre? Because I would argue there's not really any as a genre where it excels and does a good job of it. There are just shows that have good elements of horror. Like Made in Abyss has some scary moments, but it's not like a horror anime. Like there's tons of shows that, like I said, wear the aesthetic well, but don't execute on frightening you.
No,
Promised Neverland has a great kind of horror vibe at the beginning, and then it kind of fades out.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely starts off, I think, pretty strongly horror, at least in that first season.
Suspenseful, but is it? Are you closing your laptop after watching episode 1 of Promised Neverland and being like, "Ooh, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight"?
No, I guess not.
You're like, "Oh, those kids are going to not have a good day tomorrow," but like, I'm going to be fine.
Chat said another. That show's too old. Well, we're talking about like recent things. That show's like 10 years old or even older now.
Yeah, I mean, you could bring up Higurashi, like that has
too old.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's
cheeky, but like they're
20 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
So like to me, I feel horror and anime is how I feel about sports and anime a lot nowadays. Where the sports is like, oh, these people they play volleyball, but like 96% of the show is them sitting around and like eating and talking. Like it's not really about sports.
No, I will say, Brandon, if you want some zombie apocalypse type shows, Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress is kind of adjacent.
It is.
I think there's a Korean movie called Seoul Station, which is probably pretty accurate as well. So check them out. But
it's a cool show. It's pretty cool. Yeah. I like it.
Normally, if you're getting zombies nowadays, you're getting like Zombieland Saga, or just using zombies in a new form more than the traditional. Ooh, they're killing everyone. So, oh well.
Anything else on horror? Do we agree?
I feel like it's pretty undeniable that it is on a decline for sure. Right. I think the next one that you have listed here, that's the first one that popped into my mind. If you want to get into that one. So
the mecha genre. Mecha used to be so popular that other countries would rip it off and make shows like Robotech. And put it on TV. Because mecha was so massive, but it's really been in decline for about 20 years, I'd say, from its peak. Probably peaked in like the 80s and 90s. I got a lot of information from an article for this off of Reddit, and some guy like said he wrote his thesis on this exact topic and like just launched into it.
Jeez.
So I would actually argue against this.
You would argue that mecha is not in the decline.
So I would say that if your point is that mecha is not as popular as it once was, I would 100% agree. Mecha used to be a top 5 genre of anime. It used to be the tour de force. You're getting all the action figures because, it's easier to sell stuff of these little mechanoid Gundams. And really, back in the 80s, 90s, like big budget CG Hollywood stuff couldn't do what it does nowadays. So really, anime was the best place to see these cool robots do their thing. And I feel like that's obviously mecha was popular and blooming. But really, if you look at the numbers, in a sense, almost as much mecha is coming out today as it was decades ago. Like just numerically, you're still getting 20 or so mecha shows a year. The problem is they're just being overshadowed by all the other genres that it's just getting lost in the sauce. And what you are getting isn't, the force that it once was. So you're still getting the mecha you always wanted. It's just not the premiere of anime, and it's just not as good in a lot of sense. So it's just kind of existing, but not thriving like it once was.
So the thing that popped into my mind, which was like the first genre that I thought of, was in the mecha realm, which was like more militaristic, real robot kind of shows. And I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I do feel like we haven't gotten a lot of that. Like a lot of the mecha that we get nowadays is more what do they call it? Not the real robot, but the other one. I forget.
Super robot.
Yeah, super robot. At least that's what, anecdotally what I've seen myself. But if you have metrics to, indicate that that's wrong, that's great. I would be willing to hear that.
Well, so I'd like to get into some argument here, but I'm going to argue that there's not nearly as much mecha nowadays, and particularly not noteworthy mecha. And I have a whole article here. Like, listen, I just want to give this guy credit. Sure. I'm going to put it on the screen here. This was a pretty good read. This article this guy wrote it's on Quora. This Irwin guy said his 2001 graduate thesis was on anime, and he has written a massive article on here that's quite long, and it has a lot of information about why this is happening, and we'll get into that because I wrote down some of the bullet points, but. Let's just go through this real quick. In 1998, 1999, which is the period I always like to go to, there were 25 shows that were mecha. And this is TV series, right? 9 or 10 of them were noteworthy. Those were The Big O, Infinite Revias, which is a super cool anime that no one ever talks about, Blue Gender, Steel Angel Kurumi, Kakarot Nuku Nuku, Zoids, which I love Zoids.
Zoids, yes.
Turn A Gundam, AD Police, Bubblegum Crisis, and Beast Wars. Those all came out during the 2-year period. And I'd argue that in the last 2 years, there's really only 2, maybe 1 show at all that's come out. And I'm going to go through them. And then, and then I'd love if you guys argue with me because I think it makes good content.
Sure.
These are... The first one is this show called... Sensuality Noir, which I didn't watch, so I don't know shit about it. Doesn't have a great review, but it is mecha. So I watched the trailer. It's mostly robots blowing shit up and stuff like that. Then there was another show called Brave Bang Bravern, which I haven't seen. Yeah, Bravern, which I haven't seen either. But like nobody watched this. And then there was the Witch of Mercury anime that came out. This is from 2024, by the way. Witch of Mercury. Actually, that was last year. This year, Gundam Requiem came out, which is bad, and I'm sure we're going to fail it in a couple weeks. Then there were 2 kids shows. And then there was Grendizer U and Shinkalion, which were both apparently bad, and no one watched them. So from 2024, really you've got like 2 or 3, then they were mostly bad. Then in 2023, you had even fewer. You had 7 kids shows from 2023, and I mean like shows that are obviously meant for like 6-year-olds. Like it'd be like Beyblade or something like that. You had the first season of Sensuality Noir, the Gundam Witch of Mercury show. Then there was a show about a vermin extermination company, which is I don't think anybody really watched. The second
None.
one.
What about Gridman? What about Pluto? What about Fafnir? What about the new Code Geass? What about Data Live? What about Gundam Seed movie? What about the Zega Pain movie?
We're not.
All-
I'm not looking at movies. When did Fafnir come out?
I don't know. Probably 2023.
How do you even spell Fafnir?
Fafner. I don't know. I haven't. I haven't seen it.
You're like, I'm not watching that crap.
I don't know. I feel like it came out. When did it come out? I mean, it's been around for forever. But I
There's
felt like there was
Sokyu
a
no
movie or something.
there's Sokyu no Fafnir Dead Aggressor. It came out in 2004. Sokyu no Fafnir
Yeah,
Dead
I mean, it's been
Aggressor
around for like 2 decades.
season 2
It's just
came out
some lingering.
came out in 2025. I'm
Oh,
just
or coming out in 2025.
yeah, or not 2025, 2015. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
So I was only looking up TV shows from the last 2 years,
okay.
and there really aren't any. So that's,
Yeah, I mean, there's more movies and stuff, but like they exist. But also, you can't bring up like Catgirl Nuku Nuku and be like, oh, what a force of mecha when it has like a. No one has watched Nuku Nuku besides you, Mitz. I'm sorry to say.
How many people have watched Kakro Nuku Nuku? Do you think?
I think 7 in the world.
Including you?
Yeah, I'll count Mitz for 2 of them.
I'm kind of
I
curious
don't know.
about
It's,
that.
like it's hard to say like, oh, you can't count these shows as mecha because they suck. But also, here's a show from the '90s that I like that objectively sucks.
Well,
so,
don't
like, we
don't
can count it there.
Okay, well, don't call out Kakro Nuku Nuku and as a way to discount Big O, Infinite Revice, Blue Gender, Zoids, Gundam, 80 Police, Bogan Crisis, and Beast Wars. I mean that's a list of shows that
Is
a list.
when it was at its peak. I'm not arguing against that. I'm just saying mecha still exists. Yeah, sure, maybe it's on life support, and I'm not arguing it's not as popular, but mecha fans are desperate. They'll take anything these days.
well, that's my point. Like I don't think that most of these shows their mecha seems to have been reduced. If you go on AniList or whatever and filter it down to mecha and look at the last 2 years, it's a bunch of kiddie stuff.
Yeah.
I just think mecha's been reduced to a kiddie genre. It's meant for kids now. It's just a kids thing.
I mean, which makes sense, right? It's like they want to sell the toys and the, and kids are going to buy that up. And I mean, certainly, of course, there is an adult art audience for like Gunpla and stuff like that. But largely, it is kid driven and kid focused. And so it would make sense that a lot of the shows would be aimed at them.
Chat says Pluto. I don't think Pluto's a mecha show.
I mean, we're getting into the weeds of what is a Pluto.
Yeah,
what
that's mostly
is a mecha.
humanoids and humanoid. I mean, if Pluto's in a mecha show, so is Ghost in the Shell, because they're just cyborgs walking around.
They're them robots. But
Yeah.
I mean, even going back to like the retro revival, like SSSS Gridman, like that's bringing back a tokusatsu show from the '90s, fresh coat of paint, fresh anime aesthetic, and coming out of the gate and really doing a good job. Like that show looks awesome, feels great. If you're that into that kind of thing, Braverin is kind of in that similar camp as well.
Well, like
So
I said,
they're making stuff, but it's just not the premiere. You're not getting the best of the best anime studios and people handcrafting these meticulously hand-detailed cockpits, which is awesome. I wish we could go back there. I really do, but it's just not where we're at these days.
I guess I didn't lay the rules out clear enough at the beginning, but the Gridman show is way too old. That's 6 years old. Time flies.
But it's still coming out. Do we take credit for shows that started a couple years ago that are still existing? Like the movies are still coming out.
Nah, see, I didn't count them. I didn't go
Okay.
into. It's just too long of a list.
That's
Anyway, why is this happening? I want to run through it real quick because this is kind of interesting. We're running it a little long, but we'll be fine. So we'll see if you guys agree with this. This is all from that article that I read. Manga artists don't typically make mecha manga. So without the manga, there's not much source material to work from. It's not easy. Mecha designs are tough to draw. They're intricate. Most manga artists don't have the time or the technical aptitude to draw machine parts and stuff like that. Mecha artists spend a lot of their time drawing humans and perfecting their art of humans, but at the expense of other genres. So basically, they're saying, studios, they mostly adapt manga when doing anime, and since there's no manga being made, there's no anime being made.
Yeah.
So that does make sense to me. And does make sense to me that like drawing a robot is way more intricate and difficult to do than drawing a human. Most mecha anime are big projects that require a full anime team with big funding, with like mechanical designers and that are separate from the character designers. So that requires a lot. Only studios like Sunrise, can put forth the effort to like get that kind of funding. And apparently they say this was true back in the 80s as well. In the 80s, before the Japanese bubble collapsed, there was enough funding to go around to make these kinds of content, but these days studios have to be a lot more selective about their projects, and they can't afford to be careless about making original anime that are risky. So they don't want to take risks. And then, of course, and this article mentions Berserk a lot, because there's actually like a lot of armor in Berserk that gets drawn, and it has like a mecha type of design feel to it, but not everybody's Miura. And mecha designs, manga usually require more of like a mature professional touch to their writing. There's a lot of war, people dying, emotional distress, psychology, that's difficult for writers to handle. So I think the crux of this whole like discussion, and I kind of boiled it down, is that mecha shows are harder to create because of the art and because they're just deeper, more like in-depth stories.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
They're like the superhero movies of today's Hollywood. You can't get by with the indie budget. It needs to be the big blockbuster, full expenses paid throttle that you just don't. That's a big risk for anime.
Yeah, I agree, and I think especially when it comes to like real robot stuff, because, I mean, if you're doing a super robot and animating that, it's like you don't have to consider all of the minute details of the mechanisms that cause it to be mobile, as you would in something that's more authentic and militaristic. And then of course, as you mentioned, with having to build those worlds and those stories out, like that's a lot of work. And especially if there's not a huge audience for that, why do that when you can just bust out another whatever sports anime or another shonen anime? It's like, why would you waste your time on something that's not going to get as much of an audience or make as much money and be harder to do? So it makes sense.
Robots are cool. We should go back to making shows with more cool robots. I would agree. I would sign that petition.
Yeah.
And you guys may not agree with this, and we may not have time, but I also would say the sports genre is really hurting right now. I mean,
I think it's hurting in quality.
That's the one I would argue even more against. I was more being fun about mecha, but yeah, I mean, sports. We're still getting sports. It's still coming out.
I mean, there's several this season.
It's harder to commit to a 700 episode long series of following someone from their t-ball league to being in the majors like you can with some anime we have, but like that'd be cool, but like it's still coming out in all shapes and sizes, and you could argue, oh, I don't like this, I don't consider this a sport, but that's on you for having a narrow scope. Like it's still coming out. I think they're good. They're good sports coming out.
It depends on what you're looking for in sports, because if you go on if you go on AniList or Mao and you filter it to like reviews or score, the last hit sports anime was Blue Lock, and that came out at the end of 2022. Birdie Wing was not a hit. Okay, if you go on Mao, only 25,000 people reviewed Birdie Wing. Blue Lock had almost 500,000 people reviewed it, and EPO surprisingly had 300,000, which is a lot less than Blue Lock. But those are hits. Birdie Wing, not a hit. And then in the last few years, really the only sports anime that had a good review was Blue Box, and that's badminton. And I don't know, no one cares about badminton. I actually looked up I tried to see where badminton fell on the global sports popularity ranking, and I couldn't even find it because it's not on any list because it's not popular. I couldn't
find it either, but that's because every list stops at the top 10.
Well, fair enough.
And does boxing fall in the world? Where does ping pong fall? Where does it's hard to argue that because this sport isn't popular, it doesn't count as a big sports show. I like that we're branching out into different kind of sports that are weird or different, but it's if you're looking for a highly technical, this guy is practicing the sport all day, we follow him getting better at the sport and whatever, but then it's but it's a F1 show. Well, that sounds it's hard. It's hard, but I don't know. I think sports are still thriving. We're still getting more Haikyuu coming out. We're still getting a ton of stuff.
Are you?
I mean, how many sports anime are there this season alone? Like, I feel like I've watched 5 of them.
Now, if you're going to argue a lot of them suck, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Well,
I
a
would
lot
say
of
the
these-
quality has declined.
That's the thing. A lot of these sports shows are like they're about like people's like think about the water polo anime. That anime was about sports technically, sort of, but it was 90% about people whining about their problems. Like that is not sports. Like I don't want a show where they happen to be like, you know, badminton players, but all they do is bitch and whine about their personal problems
I've
the whole
also
time.
never seen a sports show where they suck at the sport so bad for so long. Like usually the guy's like, "Oh, I want to join the bicycling club. I don't know how to ride a bike." But then by episode 3, they're putting it together. Remain, they just sucked at water polo the whole time. It was kind of impressive.
Yeah, that anime was
but like
terrible.
Surene was that like archery show, and like sure, a lot of people didn't watch that, but like that was really well done. Ippon again had good wrestling. Uma Musume, you'll argue, oh, they're just
come on, it's not
Moe
even
girls
sports.
racing, but like that is the most realistic show because they are based on literal factual horses running literal factual races. And the funniest part about that is they had to go to the owners of these horses and be like, "Is it okay if we take your horse and make them a Moe girl?" And they had to agree to it.
Amazing.
Well, of
Very
course they
funny
would
to
say
think
yes.
about. Of course they would say yes.
Yeah, of course they would.
MF Ghost is literally just racing.
Did you say of
that's
course
sports all
they
the
would
time.
say yes?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Just making sure.
Anyway, I guess I'm just unhappy with sports because they tend to like they're either not good, like the golf shows we've had lately. They're either not good, they're full of like little moe girls and they don't even play sports, or it's some sport that I don't care about. Like Sudune might have been fine, but I don't give a fuck about archery. I'm not gonna watch it.
Yeah, and that's fair. And like
Why?
we're getting new Slam Dunk. That movie was phenomenal.
That movie was awesome.
It's
I
just a
know
movie, though.
Awashi was pretty close to what you're looking for.
So Awashi, I actually wrote on the doc. I said I would argue Awashi is the last good sports anime that was about sports that was highly reviewed because it has an 8.2 and had a lot of people watch it. Other than and was a mainstream sport. So like I don't know. Maybe I'm just bitching and moaning, but like I don't really want to watch shows about golf or about golf. I would actually watch, but they're not good. Badminton, judo, kyudo, cycling, moe hockey.
But you used to love cycling. What about
but a lot of
Pedal?
it stuff has been really bad, like Rinkai or whatever.
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
terrible. Like Yaomushi Pedal, as much as I did not like that show,
I didn't like it either.
in like comparing it to something like Rinkai, I'm like, okay, Yaomushi, I could watch. Rinkai was terrible. I guess the big thing is I'm trying to argue is not that every sports show is good or every show nowadays or was bad nowadays compared to the old. There's just more anime coming out, and there's only so much quality to go around. So you're rolling the dice, and the odds of the show you're watching being good is lower than ever. So when we have more shows of a genre coming out this year, yeah, you're getting more mecha shows, or as much mecha nowadays as you did in the past, but the odds of those shows being better are worse. And you got to try everything and find what is really have to separate the wheat from the chaff more than ever before, which sucks. But this is the problem with over making way too many anime.
I think we're out of time, but I'll just say like I think it's funny that they even make anime about these other sports because like we're talking about like companies, they want to make money, they don't want to take risks, so that's why they do remakes. It's like if you're going to make a sports anime and you don't want to take a risk, make it about soccer, baseball. Yeah, like who the fuck is going to watch a show about like
Male gymnastics.
Yeah, like who?
Great show, but like it's
but, like,
probably going to reach an audience of 7 people.
Well, so
not
why make
including
it?
The Nuku folks.
Like it's cool that they made it because it's different, but like no one's going to fucking watch that. Like
But
people
then why
thought
isn't everyone just doing an isekai? Like
people like want to watch. People were like, "Oh, Birdie Wing." No one fucking watched Birdie Wing. It has nobody watched it. It's our Discord and like 3 other people and a squirrel. Like, it's true. It's like, go on my anime list and look up Birdie Wing. You'll be shocked. It's like it wasn't a hit. So anyway, whatever.
luckily there's still people in anime who want to just make things that they want to make and are creative and are willing to.
And I support that.
Get these studios to sign up to take risks on a show that A, might be bad, or B, no one cares about. And I admire that. I just, I'd wish we had great shows all the time. And unfortunately, you don't get that when you get 70 anime a season.
And I support that. I just want them to make stuff that I like too.
Oh, well, sure.
Give me another Awashi once every 2 years. That would be helpful. All right, we're out of time.
That was fun.
Yeah, that ended up. Yeah, it was good. You guys are great.
Also, give us more science fiction. Anyway,
That's true, yeah.
Intro question. Tony, read it off for the good people.
Yes. Speaking of sports anime, in Blue Lock, how many strikers enter the selection process at the beginning of the series? Stick around through the news break and we'll give you the answer when we get back.
Hey, Anime Addicts, Mitsugi is bringing you that sweet, sweet anime news, getting us started off with some business news in anime. Toho has acquired G-Kids in an effort to expand its global animation influence. Toho Company Limited, the very famous Japanese entertainment company, has announced that they are acquiring G-Kids, which is a North American animation producer and distributor. They haven't revealed the financial details of the transaction. However, by acquiring G-Kids, Toho adds a highly respected North American distributor and sales operation to its existing licensing and merchandising activities under that Toho International banner. They're also going to be expanding and accelerating their global reach. So CEO Hiro Matsuoka emphasized the strategic importance of the deal, noting that G-Kids' deep integration into the United States market aligns with Toho's goals to expand its international footprint. So it looks like G-Kids is set to become a fully consolidated subsidiary of Toho in early 2025. We'll have to see what that brings financially in the business world of anime. Next up, a new anime is coming out. Webtoon, The Beginning After the End, is getting a TV anime in 2025 from director Keitaro Motonaga of Hametsu no Oukoku from studio ACAT. So the synopsis follows... the story follows the strongest king in history, Gray. Although he possesses unparalleled power and wealth, fame, etc., there is no one who stands by his side, no one he trusts, until one day Gray meets his death and is reincarnated as a powerless infant, which we've seen about 14 times now, named Arthur, in a world of magic. So that will be a delightful treat, I'm sure, whenever that one comes out in 2025. Next up, some sad news in anime. Yukihiro Shibutani, the art director of Natsume Yujincho, has passed away at age 63. Also worked on lots of Detective Conan. It looks like Shibutani died at a Tokyo hospital due to complications from a long-term illness. Very sad. He was born in 1960 in Aomori Prefecture and began his career in Ishigaki Productions at age 20 and worked on lots of stuff, including Lupin the Third, Gintama, Akira, Detective Conan, amongst others. A great name in the anime industry has passed away. Next up, some funny news. Hayao Miyazaki makes some shocking comments about Nausicaa. So in a recent interview with Miyazaki, he brought up aspects of Nausicaa's character design, largely her breasts. He says, "Nausicaa's breasts are quite large, don't you think? If that's not so she'll be able to breastfeed her babies in the future or make love to a man who will steal her heart away. I think her bosom has to be large so she can embrace all those poor old men and women in the castle when they are dying. I think her bosom is something like that. That's why it had to become big. When she held them to her chest, they could die peacefully. I thought her bosom needed to be as such." Hilarious. Just thoughts from Miyazaki, just totally wild. So Nausicaa's breasts are indeed the comfort to the afterlife. Next up, My Hero Academia breaks box office records with latest movie. So My Hero Academia has achieved quite a staggering feat here with its film You're Next, shattering previous box office records by the franchise, earning $250 million globally, which is pretty dang impressive, and that's since it was released in August in Japan. The financial success might have been expected, but the film's exponential box office return may surprise a few people. Your Next achieved a 118% increase in profit compared to its previous theatrical release, therefore solidifying that you will probably get 17 more My Hero Academia films until you are good and tired of it. This is Mitsugi, and this was your anime news break, and now time to get back to the podcast. Anime Addicts, the AAA podcast, is always trying to bring you new and exciting ways to enjoy our content, and now we have an exclusive member-only RSS feed on the site that is going to let you access our hentai episodes, our Hobby Addicts, and our After Parties episodes all from your favorite mobile apps. That's an additional 8 episodes of content per month just for you. And you can listen to it through Apple Podcast app. You can listen to it through Podcast Addicts, Pocket Cast, Overcast FM, Downcast FM, etc., onward and onward. So many mobile apps for you to choose from. If you were holding back on supporting the podcast because you didn't like listening to our extra content through our website, now you can get it and listen to it the same way you enjoy all your other podcasts. So pitch in, help out the podcast, do a good thing, and enjoy all the extra content we have for you. Just go to AAAPodcast.com/join, and you will get all this extra content and an exclusive member RSS feed for you to enjoy. That's AAAPodcast.com/join, and support the podcast.
And now, great moments in Anime Addicts Anonymous history.
Faye's also a little too. She's a little on the like. She's a vanishing person. There's just like not a whole lot there too. I think she lives off cigarettes. If you know what I mean. There's not a lot to grab onto.
No handles to hold when you're going at it from behind.
Can you see how delicate I am? I try to say it, and then Pancake comes in and she says it for me. This is a fucking great arrangement.
It is.
You said what I was thinking.
I know.
I just didn't want to say it, so you said it.
Of course.
But it's okay if you say it.
Of course, yeah,
Perfect.
because I have a vagina.
There's not
You
enough
can't say it
to
'cause
hold.
you have a penis.
To
Yeah.
grab onto.
Yeah, you need those handles. You want those back dimples.
You want the cake on the beach, the
Yeah.
sand on the booty.
Yeah. You don't want to slap the ass and go ting.
Ting.
You want a little bit of a wubba
Wobble,
wubba.
wobble, wobble, wobble. Yeah. Perfect. High five.
High five.
There you go. Welcome back to the podcast. You remember when we used to rap about the reverse kotatsu?
Yeah, I do.
In Blue Lock, how many strikers enter the selection process at the beginning of the series? It is.
Well, that would be 300.
Sanbyakunin.
Now, was it actually 300, or do I remember that at the end of the first season, or later on in the show, they talk about like it wasn't actually 300 people. We just wanted you to think that you were at the bottom of the ranking or something like that. Wasn't that part of the story in the first season?
I honestly don't know.
They told people like they were all in the bottom part of the ranking.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
there were 300 people, but they told each group of like 25 or whatever, you're the bottom 25.
Okay, that's what it was.
I think it's been a hot minute.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we do every week, it's time for mailbags.
It's time for an almighty anime mailbag. Anime.
Mailbag. Bag.
Yeah. I see it's highlighted in blue, so I guess I'll go ahead and read this for us. We have a mailbag submitted by Queen Opals, and it says, "Hello, AAA peoples. I was wondering what was your guy, or ugh, I can speak, guys. This is, I was wondering what your guys' first anime was, or what was the first anime that got you into the genre, or both. Thank you guys for always putting on a great podcast for my car rides." So,
You can always count on this question being asked like once a year.
Yeah, pretty much.
They just have to
It's
check.
a classic.
just to make sure it hasn't changed.
Yeah. I'm sure I would bet someone could go back across like the history of this podcast, find every time this was asked as a mailbag, and figure out that we gave a different answer
That would,
each
you
time.
know what? I wouldn't
Be
be
like,
surprised.
Mason said it was Pokemon this time. But
Yeah.
last time he said it was Dragon Ball, and the time before that it was Sailor Moon. What is it, Mason? Fake anime fan confirmed. I bet he's never even seen an anime. And
If you run for office, I think
You're
those will be
committed
the commercials they use against you. It'd be like,
Exactly.
who even is Mason?
You're
He
very
said he
committed
watched Dragon Ball.
to the lie.
I'll go first real quick. My first anime that I ever saw, to my recollection, was something that it was before I even knew what anime was. It was I was a little kid, and it was Dragon Ball, not Dragon Ball Z, but Dragon Ball. There was a time in the early 90s where Dragon Ball aired for a very short period of time in America on television. And I just have a memory of being a little kid, I think at my grandma's house, and seeing a little cartoon man with a tail in the desert with a talking pig. and a hover car, and I was like, I didn't know what it was, but it stuck with me as a little kid. So that's technically the first anime I ever laid my eyes on. And then of course after that it would go on to be all the typical Toonami stuff, or Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z and all those good things. But yeah, the first anime I ever saw was Dragon Ball. I had no idea what it was, and I only saw a glimpse of it one day randomly.
And is Dragon Ball also what got you like into anime?
Oh, what got me into anime was definitely you know what? It was Pokemon, I think, because yeah, it was that I was watching and playing the games at the same time, and so that's certainly like the first anime that I realized what it was and that it came from Japan and was something a little different than what we were getting in the States. So I would say that was the first thing that got me into anime. Now, is it like one of my favorite animes? No, of course not. But that's like the first thing that kind of triggered that journey.
That led us here today. How about you, Mitz?
Yeah.
Well, one time when I was like 4, I walked in on my dad watching Night Shift Nurses. So that was probably the first, technically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And I've never finished that anime. I just can't bring myself to do it. It's
I get it.
It calls to a darker time that I wish I couldn't remember. So thank you,
It's too
Queen
close to
Opals. Thanks for sending this mailbag in. Now I remember it again. Then my mother
You
got
just unlocked that memory.
Yeah, you just unlocked that memory achievement. I got the 5G achievement, and now I need therapy. And then after that, my mom got Totoro for me on VHS, and because like Disney or something, not Disney, somebody had like brought them all over here, 20th Century Fox or something, and Totoro's great. But the first anime that really got me into anime was Dragon Ball Z for sure. I mean, yeah, because there's stuff that like you see, and I don't think Dragon Ball Z was probably even like one of the first 10 anime that I watched. But you watch it and you're like, oh, that's fine, but it doesn't really like hook you. Then there's that one show that gets you, and I think you guys are right. For a lot of people, it's Pokemon, and it was and it still is. But for me, I think it was Dragon Ball Z. Mason?
Yeah, Pokemon for me was the first one that was like, this is cool. But when I say like get into the genre, like to me that means like what anime is, and you're like, oh, this is my jam. And like I always liked the Ghibli stuff. Like I remember being excited when they were brought over to Cartoon Network, and it's like Miyazaki month, and I'm like, I don't know what Miyazaki even means, but I like the look of that guy's jive. Yeah, that lady is like running on the pipe as it like falls away from the building. That's really cool. Like I didn't know that Spirited Away. That was awesome. But the first anime that I remember being like, oh, this is gonna be a thing I continue watching, like maybe too much, was Kill la Kill, which was like way later, but like it took me a while to like find the time to be an anime fan,
Yeah.
and have the resources to get it by internet means.
Well, you know what? You just reminded me of another anime, which was an anime movie based on a video game called Fatal Fury.
Oh my god!
And I remember watching that as a little kid.
It's a terrible anime.
It's terrible, but you see boobs and you see a guy get blown
Hell
up.
yes!
And as a little kid, I was like, "What even is this?"
Yeah.
So that definitely hooked me. I was like, "Well, I definitely need more of that."
You watch that, and you're like, "This is what I'm going to base my personality on for the next 20 years."
Speaking
Don't
of,
mind if I do.
Speaking of Miyazaki and boobs, I don't know if you guys listened to the news break, but they were doing an interview with Miyazaki, and he was talking about Nausicaa, and he was saying, well, there's an interesting thing about Nausicaa, is that she has, what was the quote? He's like, she has rather large breasts, don't you think? And we're talking about like Nausicaa here. She's like 15 or whatever.
Yeah. What?
But Miyazaki,
We're all like, no one has ever thought that.
well,
all I think about when I think of Nausicaa is her uncomfortably skin-colored tan pants.
Have you ever?
So they say.
Have I ever showed you my doujinshi? Oh, that has Nausicaa in it.
Oh no!
I still have that. Have you seen that? Did I show it to you?
That sounds like a hentai episode.
I mean, I can't put it on stream. I'll get arrested for sure. The FBI will literally swing through my windows. But he said that the reason why he gave her big breasts had nothing to do with like being sexual or like, what did he say? Charming a man that would eventually break her heart or something. He was like, the reason was so that she could comfort all the men in the castle that were dying during the war. He said he thought it would be comforting if they would die with their face in her bosom. You had to look this quote up. That's exactly what he said. It's so fucking funny.
All right.
Anyway, before we get to our impressions, I just want to do
He's
something.
getting old. Thank you for the mailbag.
He's losing his shit. I just want to. I've been thanking people for supporting us. So we have 2 new supporters this past week: Oscar H and Tighty H. Oscar C and Tighty H coming in through the website and through Patreon. So thank you guys for being fucking badass at Anime Addicts.
And if you're on the Discord, let us know so we can give you special fancy roles that make you feel superior to other people, which is why anyone does anything in this world.
That's right.
All right, we're at time for impressions.
Oh, it's impression time.
Are you ready for the drop?
I believe it.
Today, we're going to be doing impressions.
Impression time. Believe it.
Believe it.
Amazing.
So people probably aren't confused, but some of the hosts were confused about how we're changing the impression system.
You could just say me. You could just say I was confused.
No, everybody was. And we're not. It's not changing really at all. I mean, we're still choosing the anime the same way. There will still be 3 listener choices. It's just that now, instead of doing one person passes an anime or fails it, we are all going to vote on each of them and collectively pass or fail them. And I think, frankly, that makes more sense anyway.
Yeah.
That way, we're not like being forced to watch shit we hate all the time. So
Yes.
this is all part of an initiative to be a little more positive, when watching the anime. And as soon as we get through all the stuff that's like in the backlog, hoping we'll be there, but we're working on it.
Awesome.
So let's just start with Blue Lock Season 2. That's the first one. So
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull it up here. Blue Lock Season 2. Obviously,
My notes.
yeah, Season 1 of Blue Lock started. This is actually Blue Lock versus U20 Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert, they're probably going to play the under-20 all-Japan soccer team. So,
Spoiler alert by the
spoiler
name of
by
the
the
season.
title.
Yeah.
Had Season 1 of Blue Lock had a pretty good score on my anime list. A ton of people watched it. Had an 8.2. It's basically about a facility where it's almost like a Squid Game type thing where they bring all these kids that are like all strikers into this facility, and he tells them that one of them will become like a famous person or whatever, and then 299 of them are basically going to have to retire. So I believe that was the And
Yeah, they took the top 300 strikers in the country and are basically going to tank all of their careers except for one guy, and you have to become the what do they call it? The ultimate egoist is what they say.
Yeah.
In order to
the striker that's going to change the face of Japanese football.
Whoa. Yeah,
It's a soccer death game show.
But the premise is so ridiculous, though, right off the bat, because you're just going to eliminate all of Japan's talent so you can have one person.
right to have one good
what?
soccer player.
So we reviewed this on episode 671, season 1 of it. And I guess I was coming into season 2 expecting just more of the same. And I think the show knows, like, it's very tongue-in-cheek that this is such a ludicrous, absurd concept that is so far removed from anything practical that it could only be an anime. And I really do enjoy the show for that. Like, it takes the absolute piss out of these death game shows and sports shows simultaneously. I think one of my favorite parts about season 2 is they go just in one nothing happening scene. They go to like the bathroom and like the toothpaste and the moisturizer and the gel and like everything you would find in your toiletry bag is all like Blue Lock themed. It's all like Blue Lock moisturizer, Blue Lock toothpaste. Like, it's so like everything in the world revolves around this soccer facility. And it's like they just went to, the same kind of company that a hotel uses to print their logo on everything. But it's like, it's so asinine that it's like that it commits to it. It's that it's really funny to me.
Yeah, and we were talking in the first half of the show about sports anime, and we wanting them to be about sports. I feel like Blue Lock is entirely about the sport. Like, it is, like, all they do is play soccer, and all they talk about is soccer technique. Like,
And now
And, like,
it's
there's,
not
like, little
traditional
asides.
11-on-11 soccer, but it's how can we do the strikers in a 3-on-3 game, or it's a shoot and if you miss the target you die, or if like it's soccer skills in all
Yes.
sorts of mumbly jumbly ways. So if you're a purist, it's not going to scratch that itch.
No,
But it is
yeah.
still soccer through and
Yeah.
through.
It's Kuroko
That's-
no
I mean-
Basket soccer.
Yes. And I mean, like, one of the things I like about it, and they do it a lot already in this season, is that you have the main character kind of like mapping out his routes, and trying to put himself in the best position to score or to assist. And so it's like, it's very, it does a lot of like breaking down that kind of like a structure of like how to set up your teammates and how to position yourself and how to get into the best place to score. Like, and so I appreciate that about it. That's one of the things that they've already, like, right off in these first 3 episodes of the season, they've kind of delved into a lot.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, it's every player in this whole organization has a special technique or a
Right.
thing that they're especially good at, and the main character of Blue Lock, actually kind of has the same powers from the guy from Awashi of just great field awareness. Just is the great way for us to see through his eyes what's happening, so the show can like zoom out and give us the overview, like bird-eye view of everything that's going on, and it makes it easy to follow and it's fun. And it's just an easy watch. Like, you put on the show, you're kind of like, huh, that was kind of neat. And then it ends, and you kind of just rinse and repeat for episode after episode. So, like, it's very watchable. The problem is we're still got, 30-some people remaining. And we need to filter through the nobodies. So, like, the first half of the season is just going to be building up to eventual soccer. But we just have to get through kind of the cruddy soccer to get there.
Yeah.
And the show simultaneously tries so hard to look good, but looks incredibly cheap with all these really weird effects that they put over the screen. It's like they drew the characters, but they're like, oh, he's not sure what happened, so let's have the whole screen shake or transition like a PowerPoint. Or it's just, they do this really weird filtering that just makes the show look not good.
And there's lots of speed lines too.
Tons of speed
Tons.
lines, tons of shortcuts, a lot of CG usage for panoramic things that should feel epic, but just don't come across that well.
Yeah.
See,
go ahead.
the thing about the show that kind of had me feeling a little bit disappointed in this beginning of the second season was that it just seems like they're launching a little too far into the rankings and selections. I mean, the whole first episode of the season was them picking 6 or whatever people. Then they're all in the locker room arguing about who's better than who and who has what ranking and who's first and who's on B team, who's on A team, and they don't get around to even playing any soccer really. And the show is just so obsessed with like who has what rank, and who. It's so over the top with it. I know it's got to be like intentionally humorous in that way, but if they would just stop talking about who's on A team, B team, C team, who's paired with who has what ranking, who's first rank, who's second rank, I feel like they could do a lot more with it. But like they're just fucking obsessed with that shit. Like it's shonen to the detriment of itself in some ways. Like, I don't know. I mean, when they're playing soccer, it can be really cool, but like, did they play soccer in the first episode?
Yeah, I mean, they played some sort of game, maybe. I don't remember.
For like-
I watched
for
two
like
of these episodes
like
back
three-
to back, and they just blend together to me.
It was like 3 minutes at the end of the episode. They finally
Okay.
got around to it. Yeah.
It's one of those things where, in practicality, wouldn't make sense. And if you think about it, let's say there was 3 captains to choose from that they get to choose. Conveniently, everyone chooses different captains, so they get to play against each other. Like, hypothetically, they could set up this formula and everyone goes to the one team, and then they don't play any. Like, things happen too conveniently. They try to like touch on the finances, like behind the scenes, with the guy that looks like Igor from Persona. But it's just to try to do some really lame back building. Like, there's nothing going on. To me, this is, as our Discord would call it, big dumb fun. Like, you turn your brain off, you watch them do silly soccer shenanigans, and you pass your time while you eat your lunch. Like, there's really nothing of content here. I
Yeah.
didn't mind season 1. I felt like season 2 was a step down. Like I could keep on watching this, but I have no strong desire to. I don't think I'm going to get any more out of season 2 than I got out of the first season. And I personally don't think we need to pass this show. Because even if we did, best case scenario, we can just point to our season 1 review and be like, it's like that.
Yeah.
Except they eventually play an actual soccer game at the end, presumably.
All right, so Mason gave his. Mason doesn't want to. Mason says it's a fail. Cosmo, what is your opinion? Don't be influenced. This is a new system, right? Don't be influenced by Mason.
I won't. No,
Do you like it? Do you want to watch it?
I enjoyed the first season. I think that yes, this season is just going to be more of the same. One of my big problems with it is, the characters just aren't that interesting. Like they introduce all these new characters and they have very simple character traits and qualities and skills, and it's just it's all very simple. And I feel like it's something that if you were a young kid into soccer, like this would be a great show to watch, just because it's like it's not going to do anything too outlandish. It's just going to be pretty straightforward and still enjoyable. And I think that some of the action sequences are fun, and although there are some shortcuts that they take with the animation, I think that they're overall fairly well done. The way I look at passing or failing a show right now is there's three different aspects that I look at. Aspect number one, of course, is the easiest, which is, do I enjoy the show? Am I having a good time watching the show? Is this a show that I want to watch in its entirety and review and score? Number two is this a show that the audience is really big on? Like, is this a show that's really, really popular right now, or that people want to see us talk about for whatever reason? And number three, the third aspect is, does this show do something unique or different that we haven't gotten already recently? So do I like Blue Lock as a show that I would want to watch? Yeah, it's all right. Like, do I think this is a show that the audiences may be interested in? Yeah, probably, of a fair number of them. Does this show do anything different or unique, as compared to the other shows that are coming out this season or that have come out in the past couple seasons? No, I don't think so. And in a world where we have only a set number of shows that we can pass, I don't think that this is above the bar there for me. I think that this is a show that I would rather see something else get passed in its place.
Reminder, we're watching and reviewing and impressing 21 shows over the next couple of weeks. We can only pass 6 of them. So we're going to mostly be failing. And the question is this in the top 6 of the shows?
Yeah.
And part of me says no. Though I will say, as much as the characters are very simple and kind of very extravagantly designed, they just dropped 40 characters on us, and we have to kind of remember them and keep them all tracked. So, like, it makes sense that they're very simplified. And, like, This is the guy that's angry. This is the guy that's vindictive. This is the guy who's a bully. Like, I get it. I don't fault the show for it, but it definitely makes for not the most endearing of characters.
I'm also a fail. I'm also a no on this one. I think it's fine when they're playing soccer and they're doing, like, exotic heel shots, and he kicks it from behind as like a, or if they want to do fancy footwork and do things that are unrealistic but still look cool and they're still soccer. But this anime just does too much. It's just too much of like the levels and who's what rank, and I understand that's the point, but it's just not for me. Anyway, we'll fail this one.
You shall not pass!
All right, the next anime on the list is
Yakuza Fiance.
Raise wa Tanin ga ii, or Yakuza Fiance, which is a little different of type of a show. What genre is it? Seinen, I guess. So
this one threw me for a loop. Like towards when you get into the first episode and things get revealed, I was like, oh wow, I did not expect that. So pretty surprising.
So I guess they're trying to find like a wife for this grandson of a Yakuza leader. And
yes.
And he's fucking crazy.
Yeah. They're basically trying to join, I guess, their two families, these two different Yakuza families, and marrying one of the daughters off, who's like a 17-year-old, so still I guess probably senior in high school or whatever, and marrying him off to this other guy who seems very nice and sweet and charming and good looking, and all the girls in school have crushes on him.
Yeah.
And then it gets dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially we follow our main character, which is Yoshino Some, who is the daughter of one Yakuza tribe. She comes home one day and her father is like, or grandfather is like, you're marrying this other boy from this other Yakuza tribe. And it sounds straight out of like Rama 1/2. Hey, you got to go marry this guy over there. Okay, Dad, deal with it. And obviously we learn he's not as nice as he appears, and she's got to become a badass lady. And I feel like this show is like fan service for girls who want to be that mommy dominatrix type, but isn't really, so they have to like pretend to be. I don't know who this show is for, except for people who like to walk out their front door, take a big breath of air, and just get like the hottest gossip around. Like this is the
I love gossip. Oh, give me the tea, baby.
Who just want double crosses and love triangles.
Oh,
and like
yeah.
the romance that isn't right, but it's just so dangerous that you can't not fall for it. And everyone here looks very geometric. Everyone looks like they're straight out of Kaiji, but like not quite as good. Like everyone kind of just very stiffly and stuffily moves around.
Sure.
This is not a good looking show. The fights, the violence are poorly done, but pretty violent, where like they skip over actual like action. Like people square up for a fight, and then like the next scene is like the fight's over and he's like punching him and he's like, I beat you in the fight kind of thing.
And it's so violent. It is
very violent.
That's what caught me off guard was,
dude's like stabbing people in the eye with forks and stuff, and you're like, it's dark.
Her at the end of the first episode, like I guess I can't remember what, some guy's breaking into his apartment or something, and he just pounding this guy, the Yakuza, the male fiance, whatever. He's just pounding this guy's face and just bashing him, and there's blood coming out of his face and it's all over his fist, and he beats him until he's almost dead. Yeah. Then they go out, and then later out on the street, he's with the woman, and like turns around and like tries to touch her face or something, and she slaps his hand, and he doesn't like that very much, and proceeds to go on this like super. Well, I mean,
as we will soon learn.
I mean, as you'll soon learn. But first, he goes on like this 90-second like rant tirade where he talks about how the only thing she'll ever be able to do to make money is sell her body, and how she's lucky because they just happened to open up a brothel in town in the Yakuza, and she's gonna have to sell her body, and if she does really good, she'll be able to make like $4,000 a month or whatever. And it's just like totally insane. And then the next day, or like a week later, she shows up to school with $40,000, drops it on his desk, and says, "I did sell my body. I sold one of my kidneys. Here's the $40,000, and you're a fucking piece of shit, et cetera, et cetera." And he like has this instant erection for her because she's acting like a Yakuza, I guess, like at that moment.
Yeah, so the dude is a masochist.
Yeah.
So he hated her because she was just a nice girl, and now that she's pretending to be that Dami mommy that he's always wanted in his life.
Stomp my nuts.
Falls head over heels for her. So now she has to like put on this act of like being a hardcore Yakuza while courting him, while finding her way in Tokyo, while doing all this. And it's just like the spicy romance of her being in over her head in a dangerous world with a beautiful boy who is really dangerous, but kind of likes her because she's not who she says she is. And it's just trash. It's just ugly, poorly drawn trash. And some people are going to watch this and be super entertained, and all the more power to them. I mean, it's definitely a much more mature, dark show than we often get with these rom-coms, so I'll give it that flavoring for being different, but that doesn't mean it's a good flavor. It's not one I'm invested in. Like I could easily see this being a listener choice poll. I don't know how the grandparents are. This guy's like, I'm 80 years old. Look, 20.
Yeah. Well, he has gray hair, though.
Yeah, the gray hair is all you need to know. But
well, have you seen Dawn to Dawn? Because the grandma on that is...
Yeah, but she's a babe. She's a babe.
Yeah, she's a gilf.
Yeah, Yakuza Fiance. Like, you will know instantly if this is your kind of show or not. It's dark, it's gritty, it's violent, but like it doesn't move me. I don't feel anything from this show. So I really didn't like it.
Mason's a no. Kazuo?
Oh, no.
So I agree with a lot of what Mason said there. I think the show is ugly. The animation and art style, it does not look good at all. I think that it is this is one of those shows that it's like, this is bad for you. This is like, it's junk food and it's horrible for you and you probably shouldn't watch it.
Really quick,
But-
Andrew right now is in the YouTube chat saying you want to pass it.
But god damn it, I want to see this show. It's just so messed up. It's so just shockingly dark and so unhealthy and just it makes you feel icky. But I want to know where it goes. Like I am intrigued, and like I said, if a show does something that's different than a lot of the other shows that are coming out that season or that have come out in the past couple seasons, it gets some points for me. And so for me, that pushes it just above the bar to where I'm curious to see where this goes. And so I will say for me, I'm looking to pass it. So it comes down to mitts.
Down to mitts. And spoiler alert, inside baseball time, Andrew currently has the show rated the highest out of everyone on our docket. So
Oh boy.
he's not on this episode, so he's trying to pass it from the shadows. Oh, see, this is why I wanted to go first. I didn't want to have the heavy burden of making the guillotine call.
It's going to be interesting to
What's it gonna
see.
be?
It's going to be interesting to see how this system goes, because
We
we're
haven't
going to run out.
decided.
All right, here's the rub, right? I actually think this anime is pretty okay. I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen with the story, because I really don't know where it's headed. And after episode 3 or 2 or whatever it was, there's like they were being stalked by someone on a motorcycle, and it's like, where are they going with this? What's going to happen with her? Etc. And I'm not really opposed. I'm not turned off by the abusive language or the violence. Like, he's Yakuza. I expect all that.
It would be worse if they were these gritty Yakuza and they're like, gee, dang it, you're just not a swell lass. You're just not the gal for me.
And I would say, and I have sampled 14 anime so far this season, which is a lot for me. And I think this one is solidly in the middle of the 14. There are some real good shows this season, like Dawn to Dawn and Ramna. And then there's some fucking just terrible shows like the fishing anime, or especially the villainous anime is the worst I've seen so far. And the Do-Over Damsel, that one's pretty bad too. But I'm gonna say no on this one. I just don't think it quite makes the cut. Yeah, I mean, but it was really a consideration, and I think if I had been in a little more of a fucking crazy mood, I might have said yes. But I'm looking at my scores on here, and I gotta remember that I haven't watched Orb yet. Which everybody else is saying is fucking good.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Orb yet. So with that in mind, this one just doesn't make the cut. But I wouldn't be horribly against watching it later. So if
I think
anybody
this will
wants
do
to...
well in the listener choice. And remember, this is only the first week of impressions, so we don't want to use up our slots too soon. So I think this is not the last we've seen of Yakuza Fiance.
Fair enough.
Do you remember when I called you from a hurricane, Kazuo?
I
Green?
do.
I don't remember that.
Yes.
What?
No. I think. Man, this is so long ago.
I went out on my balcony and played Chopin on a keyboard to the hurricane to try to make it miss Tampa, and lo and behold, it missed.
Yeah.
Chopin nocturnes. The storms love them.
And look at you now. You're not in Tampa, and we get slammed
It missed again.
by 2 hurricanes in a row, basically.
It fucking missed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this next one is... What's the next one?
I believe it is Samuel L. Jackson's motherfucking Ghost. I'm just kidding. MF Ghost, season 2.
I have the music in here, so I'm looking for the music.
Yeah, and before anyone asks why are you guys doing all the season 2s on episode 1 of Impressions? Because Kazuo's top 2 picks were Blue Lock season 2 and Shangri-La season 2, which we'll get to later. One of Mitz's top picks was MF Ghost, and I don't think I've seen MF Ghost season 1, so that's why they're all bunched together. Kazuo or Tony, sorry. I assume this is mostly go to what are the most popular shows, and that's how you picked your list.
You know, Mason, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's exactly how I picked all of my shows. I did, what I used to do back in the day, which was I went through my anime list and looked at the shows that had the most people set to view them, and basically just chose that way. So MF Ghost season 2 was high on that list. But yeah, for those that don't know, MF Ghost is a show that is a spin-off sequel of sorts to Initial D. Is to Initial D and to the characters that are in that show, but it follows a high school kid who is half English, I want to say, half Japanese, and he comes to Japan from England to participate in this racing circuit, and also to find his father, I guess, or to connect with his father, his biological father, and yeah, it's similar in Initial D to Initial D in a lot of ways, in that there's a lot of mountain pass racing. You have this kind of stoic main character who is just insanely good at driving despite his young age. And in fact, he is trained by the main character in Initial D. So his teacher back home in England was that character. So there's definitely nods aplenty to that. It's got all the Eurobeat jams, when you get driving and drifting around corners and the music hits, so you get all of that, which I really dig. Nice. Amazing. And the show, it certainly relies, I feel like, a lot on that nostalgia and those connections to the original series, Initial D. There are some cool racing sequences. I don't, if I'm just going into kind of my thoughts on it, I don't think I am enjoying the racing sequences as much as I enjoyed them in Initial D. And I didn't really in the first season, although I overall enjoyed the first season. It's just, it doesn't feel as intimate. It doesn't feel as gritty. This is a professional racing organization. Yeah, it's been corporatized. You don't get that same vibe of like two teenagers on the back roads in the middle of the night racing against each other in their, kind of not shitty cars, but like less pristine cars. But instead, these are, highly paid athletes with sponsorships and $100,000 plus vehicles racing against each other on planned out circuits. So
it's not two teenagers in the dark at night. A lot of duct tape. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
We've all been there.
Yeah. So, it is enjoyable though, especially if you're itching for that kind of that nostalgia of what Initial D brought us. But I don't know. What do you guys think about it so far?
It's, for me, this is the same as the first season of Initial D, or of MF Agosto, as they say.
Yeah.
So we reviewed season 1 of MF Ghost, episode 723. And of all the sequels we're going to talk about today, this is it's the same as season 1.
Yeah.
In no small part because season 1 literally ended mid-race. The guy was like literally going around a turn and the credits just started rolling. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll wait another year for this to continue. Like, it just feels like it just picks back up. There's no last time on MF Ghost. It just is racing. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, it's like they just press pause and hit play a year later. There's no difference.
This anime is missing the it factor that Initial D's got, both in the characters and in the actual like racing itself. It's true, the racing is not as creative and interesting as an Initial D. No one's dipping there's no one putting their tire into a gutter on the side of the road to to avoid the G-forces, and then some other guy tries to do it and fails and does a fucking barrel roll in the air while his car crashes. I mean, none of that is happening. Takumi is a way more interesting character than Kanata or whatever the hell his name is in this. It's just that they spent a lot more time on Initial D's characters and made the characters more likable. And in this anime, they're spending most of the time racing. Now, do I like this anime? I do like it. I will probably finish it, whether we watch it or not. But it's not Initial D, and it's just not as good as Initial D. And I don't think it's going to do anything different than the first season. And damn, this guy cannot draw like female characters. They just look like their faces are so square. They all look like men. It's just so awful. This anime is not bad. It has nearly an 8 on my anime list. Like, people don't hate this. They don't. But I am going to say no to this one because I just don't think it's going to do anything interesting. I keep waiting for a car crash or someone to do some fancy shit where like Takumi turns his headlights off in the dark and passes the guy.
Oh, dude.
You know,
Yes.
and they play the music, you know, and I just don't think any of that's going to happen. So that's my stance.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it's a no for me.
Yeah, they're still oddly sexualizing all the race ladies there. Like every time they transition to them, they start by showing their butt, and then you see the rest of them. Like it's just really weird. The ED is just showing the main lady in like different outfits at the end.
See, I don't care
Every
about
single
that.
racer has like all the ladies pining over them, just proving that this guy cannot write a competent romance. On top of not being able to draw proper any characters.
Well, it's not a romance,
like,
Mason.
explanations in the show are so weird. The lady's like, "Oh, is he using like Harry Potter magic to go fast?"
Oh,
And the
yeah.
guy's like, "Yeah, that's a great explanation." And I'm like, "That's a terrible explanation." What? And they're like trying to get oddly technical, where the guy's like, the mu of this road is really low." Like mu being the Greek letter referring to friction and like calculations. Just say friction. No one says, the mu is really low on this road, so I can drift really well. Like, no, just say the friction is low. This show has a bad case of the ligma because it sucks. It's the same.
Jeez.
It's just the same as season 1, and
sucks
it's
dicks.
fine. It's fun. It's passable. It's watchable. It's got the Euro beats, and that's really all I need. But it's more of the same. And season 1 was the same. Was not very good. So let's fail this and move on.
Yeah, I'm with you too. Failing it. It just has none of the magic of Initial D, and this really feels like just a second core to the first season. Like it just continues right from there. And so if you enjoyed that first season and you want to see where it goes from here, then that's cool. Check it out. But otherwise, it's not worth passing. I feel like.
People already know what they think of this.
All right.
I think you have a special drop for Tony, don't you?
Oh.
A Lethal Weapon-esque drop?
Oh, yeah. I forgot all about that. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me.
I'm too old for this shit.
Opie, I think I'm getting too old for this stuff.
I'm too old for this shit.
I'm too old for this shit. I'm too old for this shit. Will you follow me again? I'm getting too old for this shit.
We will never be too old for this shit.
That's true.
And by this shit, I mean podcasting about anime.
I'm never going to grow up.
I'm a Toys R Us kid. I'm never growing up.
All right. This next anime is, for me, the weirdest
Oh, boy.
of the season so far. So it is Tsuma Shogakuse ni Naru, or If My Wife Became an Elementary School Student, based on a manga done by Studio Signpost, which I've never heard of. There's so many fucking studios. They've done Kingdom. Kingdom is, I gotta watch Kingdom, apparently. This fucking shit is, god damn. See, Kingdom is like this fucking beast. Like, everything it's got is like almost a 9 on Mal. I mean, what in the fuck am I missing out on? Anyway, so this anime is about a guy named Keisuke. God, he's like white. He's just bland as fuck. And I guess his wife dies, like, unexpectedly during their marriage, and it's devastating for him. And his wife dies, and it's 10 years later when this anime takes place, and he still hasn't recovered, which is so sad. He still hasn't recovered, and he's just like the shell of himself. And then one day, like, I guess the reincarnation of his wife, who is now like a 7-year-old, walks by her old family home and sees like the nameplate and the door or whatever, and realizes that was her old family's house from her past life. And so she knocks on the door, and it comes in and acts like a total bitch to them, and is just like, you don't have your shit together yet, and what is with all this home? You're not cooking at home. You're eating like TV dinners, and like fuck you, whatever. But like they're all like in love because she's like, oh, she's back, oh my god. And so the guy's life is immediately fixed because his little now 7-year-old wife is back. Meanwhile, the little girl's trying to like straddle 2 lives, and her new family that she grew up in is like, the mother at least is a total bitch, probably abusive. And so it's just this weird show where I don't know, where this little girl is like, he looks like a pedo because like he's like hanging out with this little girl a little too much, you know, and but she's making him like bentos, and like love drama ensues where there's this lady at the office that likes him, and you know she wants him to eat her bentos, but he already has a bento from his 7-year-old wife, and it's just weird. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I think the show could have been a lot worse. You see the title, that's My Wife Became an Elementary School Student, and you're like, I don't know what's happening, but someone's going to jail here.
Yeah.
And the show addresses it pretty well of just, she's obviously probably 10 years old because she probably got reincarnated right as she died. But anyway, she comes in and she's like, you guys, I'm your wife. I know this is weird. My memories just came back to me. You guys need to get your life together. And it's pretty a positive first episode. Like, everything is pretty resolved. She's like, you, husband, cheer up and start eating right. And he's like, okay. And he immediately starts doing it. And she's like, you, my daughter, get a job, go out. And she's like, okay. And she gets a job like the next day. Like, by episode 1, everything is like pretty wrapped up and everything is good and everything's pretty. Is the optics of this looking bad when they like go for a walk, and she's like, and this old man's like, oh, my wife, I love you so much, and he goes to hug her, and she's like, whoa, come on, man, you can't just do that in public. Like, you gotta think about what's going on. Like, the show is aware of what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that the title is kind of reversed. Like, if you woke up tomorrow and you found out that you were the reincarnation of like Napoleon and you had all his memories, you wouldn't say Napoleon became a podcaster. Like, you were here first. Like, I would argue that an elementary school student became my wife is how I would phrase the title.
Well, that sounds even worse.
I know, exactly, but like, it's more, she had like full, functions before this. So anyway, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, like, episode 1 was a pretty good little slice, but like, I didn't really need any more. And now it's just getting into her backstory, like her family life is kind of sad. So like, obviously they're gonna have a convenient way for her to get out of that. Like, it's kind of supposed to be this heartfelt drama that pulls at your heartstrings and make you think about what would actually happen. But it's just not really engaging to me. It's not entertaining. It's not powerful. Everyone's kind of I just I'm not getting a lot out of the show. What do you guys think?
You haven't said anything really, Cosway, yet, so I'll let you go.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that this show, the biggest flaw in this show is its title. Like, and is the fact that, I know a lot of anime have like very literal titles, and this is where that goes wrong.
It's not as bad as the title makes it out to be, for sure.
Right. Yeah. So I think when you tell someone the name of this anime, they're going to be like, wait, what? What are you watching? But when it's explained in the show, it's like, okay, this isn't as creepy as that sounds. I think, the concept is interesting. We've seen reincarnation done in anime many times. It did feel like after the first episode that we had kind of the resolution that we were looking for. And it's like, okay, well, where can we possibly go from here? When they introduced the abusive mother aspect into the show, it felt like, oh, okay, so now it almost felt like they were adding a point of drama because there wasn't really anything to go off of. And so they're just trying to create something to compel us to continue to have interest in the character. I don't really know where this show is going to go, and I don't really think that there's anywhere that it can go that's going to be especially interesting. I don't hate it. I think it has an unfortunate title, and I think it's better than that. But I'm just not that interested in it enough to see where it goes from here.
All right, so that's a fail. Are you failing it, Mason?
Yeah, I'm more interested in this show than the other ones we talked about today, but not enough so to think that it's going to hold up over an entire season's worth of content.
Yeah.
I very much want someone to finish the show and be like, oh, by the way, mom was a bitch, so that gave her an excuse to leave, so now she's leaving with the family. Like that, and that's where it ends. Or, oh, they helped her out, and now her mom, or she's in the Great Living. Like, I just need the synopsis. I feel like I don't need to see 10 episodes of this studio kind of bumble this story. Yeah.
If I could, you just triggered something in my brain. What would have made this more interesting in the first 3 episodes is if they introduced an aspect to where like maybe she's losing connection to her former life. Like she's like slipping away. She's forgetting she's the new entity that is this young girl is like taking over the body. Well, you know what I mean? Like if they had introduced that kind of a conflict, maybe where it's like, oh, she's trying to stay connected with her family, but she's losing a grip on it. Like that would have been cool. And you know, the problem is though, it's like they're 3 episodes in and they don't introduce that at all. So it leads me to believe that that's probably not going to be the main drama point in the show. It could still be, but you know, I feel like they would have introduced that already. But that would have been cool. I would have been that would to me would have compelled me to be like, all right, I want to see where this is going.
I like this. She fixed everything in episode 1. So what's left?
I like this anime. I think it's a pass from me, but it doesn't matter. I just wish the father was a little less of a pussy.
How about new?
He's just like pathetic.
I mean, he's a champ. He inhaled 2 bentos back to back.
Oh man, he's a little bitch.
That's Chad behavior.
I just want to punch him in his dick. Honestly, he doesn't have one. All right, the last anime today is...
Oh my goodness, 4 straight fails.
Oh my god.
Well, I knew it was going to be rough because all the good shows are somehow at the end of the 4-episode block. Shangri-La Frontier Season 2, which is a follow-up to a fan favorite, I think, that came out of nowhere from about a year ago. This came out and ended really strong with a really wild like fight scene in the final episodes of that last season about Birdface McNipples, Nipples McGee, as Pancake would put it. You know, it's the guy that like plays Shangri-La Frontier because he wants to change the pace from playing his like crappy, you know, whatever the fuck he plays. Like he plays games that are really bad because he likes to break them or whatever. Oh,
yeah, the Poop Tier games as reviewed in episode 722.
Yeah, and this just picks up right where it left off. You know, from season 1, going on adventures and you know, exploring the world of Shangri-La Frontier with a lot of his little like characters that look like animal people, and you know, he's got his little bunny friend with him and whatever. And this first like few episodes, it's a lot of fight scenes. You know, they spent like a whole episode fighting these like robots that are golems or whatever they are that just explode. And you know, I don't know where the hell this show's going. I don't know what the plot line is of Shangri-La Frontier. I don't know what's the plot line of any MMO. They don't really ever seem to have a very cohesive one for the most part. But I was intrigued by the end of the season where the PKers show up.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they haven't had PKers in this anime yet. They had people that were trying to get after him like in town and stuff, but I don't know that they were PKers. Like they weren't laying in wait, like trying to, you know, hunt him down. So I don't think this anime is amazing. I don't think it ever... I think the luster of season 1 wore off on me by the end of the season. And because I just think this anime is meandering a lot. Like I wish there was a little stronger narrative. Like he needs an objective or something rather than just like fucking around. But I do think this is one of the better shows of the season, if not just because it looks a lot better. You know, I'm going to pass this one. I'm just going to make this quicker because we're going long. I'm going to pass this one. I think it's probably one in the best 6 of the season so far that I've seen. Mason, you're up.
Shangri-La Frontier was definitely far better than it had any right to be. I'm with Mitz that I think the show needs some bigger pulse. Like, them exploring the world is not enough for me. I need them to be uncovering some secret about the game or about the community or some lore or some, like you said, PK killer faction of like conflict. It's too much of them just going around bopping enemies on the head and getting cool loot at this time. And while that's fun, I think season 2 really needs to bring that element to it. Like Sword Art Online was good because there was this existential threat within the game. It wasn't them just going up the tower to bop enemies on the head kind of thing. And I think this still looks good. It sounds good. It just has a comfy vibe that is fun and actiony, and it's just an easy watch. I wasn't thrilled with the first couple episodes, but I think it is one of the premier isekai, action, fighting, fantasy, whatever you want to call it, genre shows out there. It's still a good time. Is it a top 6 of the season? Maybe. So I'd be okay passing this.
Coswell?
Yeah. I think that this show, I have my gripes with it. I feel like it shouldn't work as well as it works, but it does work. I wish that there was more depth to the story. Some stakes perhaps, or some major revelation that is had. But there isn't. It's just a fun, silly show. There's nothing really to take seriously about it. But with that, it is refreshing. It's kind of like it's like having a one of those like little mini candy bars every now and then, where it's just like, oh, I just want just a little sweet treat for me, to get me through the day, a little sugar kick, and that's what this show reminds me of. So I agree. I think it deserves to be passed, and despite the fact that it's lacking in depth, I'm enjoying it, and I want to see what else they have for us.
I don't think I've ever been this excited. You're excited? Feel these nipples.
I feel like this is just a very safe pass. We know what season 1 delivered, and this season is up and down in terms of quality, but I feel like I'm returning to Shangri-La, and I know what I'm going to get served. And it's not the best dish ever, but it's the mac and cheese. It just goes down smooth, tastes fine. It's not going to upset my stomach. Like, yeah.
So you're not lactose intolerant?
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Way to flex.
I can't handle the spicy dairy. Okay, come on. Come on, dude.
Wow, rude.
All right. Well, we have our first pass of the season, Shangri-La Frontier Season 2. A lot of fails today, but, you're just going to get more passes later.
For passes in the future, yeah.
Everyone's going
to
fail
today is a pass later.
A couple of weeks from now, go to our website, AAAPodcast.com. There'll be a big thing that says Listener's Choice. And you're like, those guys, they failed Yakuza Fiance. I love that show. And they failed this show. You vote for him.
Fuck Mitsugi. He's a bitch.
We'll review it. We'll review it for you. Don't worry. We love you. We love these shows. We love anime. We just can't pass them all. Forgive us.
All right. Well, that's going to be our show for today. Thanks to the crew. Mason.
Thank you.
Mitsugi.
Oh, well, that was an accident, but we'll just leave that in. And we also have Kazuo, so thanks for being on the show. I miss you. Next week, we have a whole bunch more impressions to do. Do we have a list of those? Trying to look it up. Next week, we're going to do impressions on... Well, we're going to be talking about the Uzumaki anime next week, which should be really good. And impressions on Tohai, Blue Box, Demon Lord 2099, Sword Art Online, Gun Gale 2, and Mecha Uday. So look out for those next week.
And Uzumaki, baby.
Uzumaki as well. So for everybody at home, thanks for listening. Thanks for being fans of the show. We love you. Long today, but it was a good episode. I enjoyed it. And we'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.